If I may correct,
we're in
wasn't
now.
Nicole using the television LCD in the boardroom and then recording that with her camera and then uploading that to YouTube?
We're live now, guys. Apologize for the delay.
Okay, Nicole, the live stream is on right now.
The live stream is on now, so we're good to go.
Okay. Okay, everybody. We attempted to reconvene into open session earlier, but unfortunately the live stream is not working at that time. So this is our real reconvene into open session. No action was taken during closed session. There was not a vote. Thank you to all the people that have been waiting. We kind of had a compound problem. One, it wasn't clearly documented on the agenda that we were going to have an hour of closed session. So I think a lot of people thought the open session was going to start at 2. And then once we tried to reconvene at 3, that the live stream wasn't working. So for all those people that hung around, thank you. We appreciate you. We are going to go ahead to approve the board agenda. Can I get a motion to approve?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, passes 5-0, the agenda is approved. At this point, 1.5 receive hearings of individuals desiring to address the board. That would be on non-agenda items. I did read through about 30 pieces of public comment, and they were all on really relating to educational services. So I'm just going to move down to 2.0, and I'm going to start reading the public comment. All of the letters will not be read just because we would be here for 3 hours just reading the letters. That's the volume of mail that we received on this. So what I'm going to do is just start reading and give the public like a 20-minute sample of what we have received. As of 1:45, I had read everything, but there has been stuff that has been sent in since then. So I'm going to, as I said, do about 20 minutes of reading some of the public comments. The public does know that we are reading their letters. Good afternoon, school board members. I have 2 questions regarding the reopening of the upcoming school year. How is the district ensuring that all parents have responded to the survey about which learning model they would like for their children? Is there a deadline for the families to complete the survey? I'm concerned that August 5th will be here and there are still parents who don't know what the new procedures are as far as how they want their children to learn. As a result, students might now show up to either their campuses for cohorts A or B or with the cohort C teachers. Question 2, regarding the cohort C, down the road, if and when it has been deemed safe and we can return to 100% on-campus learning, what will happen to the cohort C students? Will they be distributed among the remaining grade level classes at their home site, or will they be able to stay as one cohort for the rest of the year? I'm worried that the change in teachers, if they are placed with cohorts A and B, will disrupt their learning. Thank you to the district who has been working hard to ensure that all our students and staff can be safe on campus. I appreciate the fact that all students and staff will have PPE provided by the district. I also appreciate that teachers and staff have been involved in these decisions with the district on how to make things safe for teachers and students upon their return to their school sites. Thank you for all that you are doing and will continue to do to help our students and staff have a safe start to the school year. Sincerely, May Penangbang, 5th grade teacher near Public Elementary School. This is from Carrie Rockoff. I too am in agreement with our union president's message. I think that in light of the current situation and the high numbers of COVID-19 cases in this specific area, I think that beginning with distance learning is the way to start off safe for all. Hopefully in time that will change and we can slowly implement returning to the classroom with all the precautions that the district has put in place. I recently found out that Salinas City School District will be starting out with teletherapy for their speech students. I can tell you all from my experience with this last spring that teletherapy is not easy. It prevents many, many challenges, and I spent many, many hours beyond the normal contractual time learning and implementing teletherapy for our students. I'm still learning, taking classes, and trying to find resources in order for teletherapy to be successful with our students. This is a very difficult decision, knowing how much we as teachers want to be with our students. However, it is the right decision. I appreciate all you do as the board for all staff, teachers, specialists, and especially our students. Sincerely, Carrie Rockoff. This one's from Priscilla McDonald. Board members, I am a concerned teacher and parent in the district. I do not feel safe going on campus to teach for this upcoming school year, and I do not feel safe for my child to go on campus. The numbers are rising with COVID-19. I've been tracking the numbers since March, and it has only gotten worse. California is the second highest state with COVID-19 infections, only behind New York by 48,000. In March, we closed school with only 340 cases throughout California. Now there are 355,046 cases. Schools want to reopen. There are 2,913 cases in Monterey County with 1,691 cases in Salinas. As of this past Monday, the state closed back down because the numbers were rising. We are meeting now through Google Meet because we can't all be in the same room, yet we want to cram students in the classroom. On a personal level, I am concerned that if we go back to school and someone gets COVID-19 in my class, I would have to quarantine from my family. I have people in my house that are high risk. I don't want to put their lives in danger. On a professional level, I have been an educator for over a decade. I have seen infectious illnesses spread rapidly throughout my classroom and schools. Pre-COVID-19 standard policy in my classroom was to sanitize one's hands upon entering the classroom, cleaning and disinfecting the desks and surfaces twice a week, and having students wash their hands after sneezing or coughing, all the while teaching good sanitary practices to my first graders. But to no avail, every year my classroom would have its own mini outbreaks. The rate of infection of COVID-19 is considerably higher than the common cold or flu. So it doesn't make sense to me to put my students' lives in danger because this is what we are really talking about. This isn't the common cold or flu. If we mess this up, if just one first grader isn't perfect, we could have a massive outbreak on our hands. Entire classrooms and even schools could be infected. One of the scientific reasons that mainstream media doesn't emphasize well enough is the main reason for sheltering in place is to minimize one's exposure to others throughout their day. It's a statistical certainty that the higher the number of people you are exposed to, that you inevitably become infected. So let's do a simple math problem. Let's assume that each student has at least 2 adults in their life, not parents, just adults, with no brothers or sisters, and each of these adults works with 4 other people daily. Thus, 2 adults times 4 coworkers times 12 students equals 96 exposures to each student and teacher on a daily basis. With approximately 500 exposures per school week, if Californians are not allowed to gather with more than 100 people, why are we being asked to expose to that many? I have discussed with my coworkers the pros and cons of coming back to school. One of the primary reasons for my coworkers is the reduced quality of education the students are going to receive if they stay home. I wholeheartedly agree that education always comes secondary after a real primary responsibility of their safety. Thank you for listening to my concerns and stay safe. Priscilla McDonald. This one is from Christina Gould. Ladies and gentlemen of the board, it has come to my attention that there is a point of contention holding up negotiations between the district and the SRTA. The issue seems to be where teachers will work with distance teaching. Please correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding is that the district intends to require teachers to physically come to their classrooms during distance learning and to place their children in some sort of child care group setting in the cafeteria while working. This baffles me. What is the reasoning behind this? The governor indicated in his most recent address to the state that all those who can work from home should work from home. If I can do the same job at home as I can in my classroom, what is your reasoning for requiring me to travel to my work site and put my children in a room with others who they would otherwise not have contact with? This would increase my family's risk for contacting COVID-19. Why would you ask us to do this against the governor's orders? Please explain this to me, correct me if I'm wrong, and do what's right for health and safety of teachers and their families Sincerely, Christina Gould, La Jolla Elementary. This is from Ashley Tripp. Good morning. I appreciate everything that has been done in the past few months to reopen schools safely. I also appreciate being as transparent as possible when discussing the options for reopening. If numbers had continued to remain low or decrease, I would not have had a problem reopening our schools with modifications. However, the numbers are increasing quickly and the most affected areas are the ones our district services. I want nothing more than to get back in the classroom with my students, but at this time I would not feel safe doing so. I have a compromised immune system and considered high risk. Despite this, if we reopen schools, even in a modified way, I would feel compelled to return to in-person teaching because my students need in-person support and I would feel guilty not doing everything I can to assist them, even if it is a risk to my own health. I am not the only teacher to feel this way, and I don't think that returning to in-person teaching out of guilt is what our district wants. I truly wish there was a way to safely reopen because our students deserve the very best, not just for their education, but for their socio-emotional health as well, but there isn't. I also feel that our district needs to make the decision now. I'm glad that we've been working towards a modified in-person schedule, but we need to take the time remaining to plan and provide PD for parents, students, and teachers for online learning. We need to discuss what attendance and grades will look like. We did the best we could at the end of last year, but improvements are necessary. Thank you, Ashley Tripp. Dear Santa Rita Board, too many lives are at risk if you bring the kids back to in-person learning in the classroom. There's way too many COVID-19 cases in the local neighborhoods per the county's report to think this would be even remotely successful. We have children too, and we would rather keep them alive so that they have the opportunity to continue their education in person once there is a vaccine. Sincerely, concerned husband of a staff member and father, Troy B. This is from Karen Yoder. I am a teacher for Santa Rita Union School District. I feel unsafe returning to work physically. I am suggesting that we follow a similar plan to Salinas High School District and others that open up in phases. If everyone who stepped on campus had proof of a negative test before entering, just like any other serious disease such as TB, I would feel more comfortable. The problem is that it is taking so long for testing that it is highly possible to be infected during the waiting period of results. Is there any way for schools to push for testing for school personnel and students to be given a priority if the governor wants schools to open? This will take time if possible. Secondly, the requirement to go to school physically to teach distance learning defeats the point. The numbers are very high in the Salinas area. I do not feel safe even going into the city. I stay away, no shopping, etc. I realize the district wants to ensure teachers are teaching. Teachers should be told how many hours they are to teach and to document. An example is the district can say you should interact with your class via Google Hangout, teaching the standards using a document camera at least 4 hours a day. Teachers should also use Google Classroom to post assignments, etc. Specifics can be determined at a later time. Principals can check on instruction. Of course, I will follow whatever decisions are made. If I need to return to school physically, I will. If I need to be with students, I will. I am just concerned for students, teachers, and others. One death is too many. Thank you for your consideration. This is from Kate Stover. Dear school board members, as we have been following the nonstop news with updates regarding the virus and reopening schools, I want to update you on how our teachers are feeling at this time. We appreciate the district talking with us about what we need to feel safe to teach our students well, no matter what our teaching environment looks like. We appreciate the district has ordered the PPEs teachers said they need to feel safe teaching our students. We appreciate the trainings being planned to help us teach from a social distance and online. We appreciate the district providing a place for our personal children to be while we work. All teachers want to get back to teaching, however, teachers are worried. We are paying attention to the data for our school district zip code as well as our county and what's happening around the nation. SRTA surveyed our members starting Monday morning asking, as of right now, will you physically return to the classroom? As news came of LA Unified and San Diego, the many local districts starting the school year with distance learning, as well as the daily positive test numbers going up, many teachers changed their answers. As of Thursday morning, we had 148 responses, with 41.2% answered no and 58.8% answered yes. The top 3 reasons teachers answered no are: 1, they are personally high risk; 2, they personally do not feel safe; and 3, they live or care with someone who is high risk. You can see a very high percentage don't feel safe being in the same room as students or interacting with others on campus. The teachers who answered yes to return to teaching in person noted that it's because 1, they feel their students need them; 2, they just feel safe returning with the proper PPE. Regarding the PPEs, those who said they feel safe teaching in person said they would feel safe if they had the following provided to them: masks, face shields, plexiglass between them and their students, as well as hand sanitizer and soap for their classroom safe. I'm happy to tell you I've heard from Melissa that these PPEs will be available to the teacher, staff, and students. In the end, overall members, even those who say they're comfortable working in person, are really stressed out about the idea of being in a classroom with 15 students for 5 hours when the governor doesn't want 6 people to be in a room for 1 hour to get their hair done. The COVID-19 numbers just don't give us comfort knowing our district's community will be a safe place to physically go to work just yet. Yes, we know it's not easy for our students to be at home. Some, it's absolutely terrible for them to be at home. However, many of our teachers don't feel safe being on campus, especially when our county has closed places where people congregate even for a short period of time. Our teachers are amazing at being there to support our students socio-emotionally. But how much do you want our teachers to shoulder and be able to provide the education we all know our teachers bring to our students, in person or online? SRTA strongly encourages you to vote to begin our school year with the time value instruction, August 5th to 18th, then distance learning until our district zip code new cases drastically decrease. Kate Stover, SRTA President. This is from Claudia Zunza. Dear members of the board, as a teacher with SRUSD, I ask that you please consider starting this 2021 school year using a distance learning model. Follow what many of our local and neighboring districts have done already, decided to implement. COVID-19 infections in our county continue to rise, and we need to keep the safety of our students and staff as our priority. Going back into the classroom brings me anxiety and uncertainty, not only for my health, but for those who live in my household. My mother, who has a compromised immune system and asthma, lives with me, and it breaks my heart to think I will put her life at risk when the school year resumes in August. I ask the board to reconsider allowing us teachers to work from home and deliver lessons via distance learning and not require us to return into school and/or classrooms until data shows that it is safe to do so. I ask for your trust and support in assuring we are all safe and healthy. Sincerely, concerned daughter and educator. This is from Jane Cummings. Good morning, board members. I'm writing to you before the board meeting today to request having an option to teach remotely instead of a mandatory A and B cohort model. I care about this because of obvious health concerns for all people and students. It is public knowledge that the best way to keep from getting this virus is through avoidance. On a personal level, I am 66 years old and I get ill from bleach cleaners and strong disinfectants and have suffered from cancer. With all of these components, returning to the classroom is an extremely high-risk situation for me, and I hope there can be a way to accommodate long-distance learning for fellow students and teachers like me. Thank you for your time. This is from Isara Ruchin. Dear Board of Education, districts surrounding my home, such as Pajaro Valley Unified School District and Live Oak, have opted to begin the school year with distance learning. For over a year, I have been receiving treatment at the Allergy and Asthma Clinic in Santa Cruz, and I'm very concerned about returning to the classroom in August. I'm also in the 50+ age bracket. I'm committed to providing quality distance learning to my students at the start of this upcoming school year. I made sure I was online with groups of children from 8:30 to 12:30 every day last school year, and using GoGuardian and Seesaw, was able to guide children through individual projects. As I have had several family members personally struggle with COVID, one being a 19-year-old grandniece, I know this is an illness not to be taken lightly. I ask the board to consider having us begin the year with distance learning for the safety and welfare of all our families. Sincerely, Isara Rochin. This is from Bernadette Ramirez. Dear Santa Rita Union School Board members, I write to you today to share our concerns about the reopening for the school year. Since there is a current rise in the COVID-19 cases in our city, especially in our district zip code, I feel that distance learning for all would be very beneficial right now. We can always revisit the situation and be ready for on-campus instruction when the time is right. I appreciate your attention to this matter. Sincerely, Bernadette Rojas Ramirez, second grade teacher. This is from Samantha Billups. As a teacher, I have numerous concerns for the return to school in 2.5 weeks. There has been a ridiculous lack of communication to parents and teachers, yet we are expected to return and prepare for a school year that is completely unknown. The guidelines sent out are vague and lacking. This puts the lives of staff and students at risk, something the district seems all too willing to do. What is the plan for high-risk staff? According to the newest closures, one of their strongest talking points is due to the mixing of numerous households. As a high-risk teacher, being exposed to a minimum of 28 households is not a risk I believe the current SRUSD protocols will protect me from. How will we be accommodated just as the students are being accommodated? I do not feel comfortable returning physically to the classroom, yet have not received any options other than to put my name into a pool of other teachers hoping to be chosen for cohort C. When knowingly online-only teaching is an option and an option in which students and families can freely choose, how will I be guaranteed safety in my workplace? At the current hybrid plan, students are exposed to 14 other households, yet teachers are exposed to double that amount. How is that any different for our safety than returning to a full-time schedule? I will not even begin to comment on how horrific an idea it is to attempt to teach where students can physically see and hear one another, but cannot interact with one another, cannot use manipulative learning tools for hands-on learning, small group collaboration, or many of the proven methods of instruction and learning, let alone have them sit, walk, play, talk 6 feet apart from their peers. Have you imagined what that would actually look like? To me, it sounds a lot like prison. I'm not ignorant to the fact that distance learning also has its drawbacks. However, my point is one of respect. The district would rather risk the lives of staff and students than risk their academics. The vast majority of our students are already behind academically, but at least they aren't exposed to serious health risks. They are alive. I'd like to keep them that way. Academics can be made up, their lives and ours cannot. So that was 20 minutes of the letters. There are many more letters. I would like people to know who submitted public comments that we do read all of them. I read everything that's sent to me. There's a bunch of stuff sent to public comments. There are many letters sent to all of the board. There were many letters sent only to me personally. And I've read all of them that I've received up through 1:45 this afternoon, and I will read the other ones after the meeting today. So thank you to all those people. And please continue to put your comments in. They are very much appreciated.
Sarah,
go ahead.
could we please get copies of those so we can attach those to the board, file that we have, so we have them as part of the record?
Yeah, everything that I just read, Nicole Jensen has in public comment. Those were sent directly to the district website.
Okay, I just want to make sure that we have it for the board packet for the record.
Yeah.
Thanks.
What about letters that we might have received specifically to us, emails?
Those, I read all of them, but those I do not forward to the district because I feel like I don't know whether people were comfortable with those being shared or not. What I just read right now were sent specifically to the district public comment website, so I felt that people were comfortable with them being shared.
Thank you. And I also want to reassure all the people that I heard from through emails or through public comment that I have read their letters and equally concerned as they are. Our decisions, will be based upon their consideration of everything that they have written to us. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, in the agenda, we're going to go on to 2.1, information regarding Santa Rita reopening plan for instruction. So, Ms. Alderman.
Okay, so for this, we're gonna get fancy and I'm going to attempt to share my screen so that those who are viewing remotely can see this. After the board meeting, I'll post this draft of a PowerPoint so that the members of the public can take a closer look just in case they can't quite get a visual on the information now. Bear with me for a second. Can you guys see the opening slide?
No.
How about now?
Yes.
Excellent. Okay. Thank you. Nadine can over to help save the day. All right. When we first began working with our certificated staff planning a reunion, we were living a different life, and that was just a few weeks ago. So while our original plan had been built on beginning the school year with a combination of a hybrid that would receive 2 days of instruction on campus and 3 days of distance learning, broken into 2 groups, as well as a cohort C receiving distance learning, that plan I think needs to be adjusted accordingly, and I've got some information I wanted to share with you as we move forward. I talked with our negotiating team last night a little bit about to give them a heads up that I would be talking to you all about these things today. I want to share with you some information about Monterey County, different guidelines from the health department and CDC, just some general recommendation of our safety team, and I'll talk about that document when we get to it. And then our instructional planning team, safe reopening of SRUSD campuses, and possible next steps. As the one who was tasked with planning out educational services, it was really important to me to get the voice of 100% of our teachers if possible. So while we had site reps who visited with us to help plan out this instruction, 100% of our teachers were invited to participate online. But our original plan has changed, and I want to kind of go over some of the reasons why I think we should look at adjusting our plan. Right now in Monterey County, our current situation summary for this week has over 2,800 confirmed cases, 185 hospitalizations, and you can see those numbers went up. This data comes out each week, daily for the situational summary. We've had 18 fatalities, and then over 1,500 recovers, and an additional 7,700 plus contacts in the county. And so you can break it down. Our local health department has this information available, and I would encourage anyone who's really tracking this to go there for the regular updates. Really comprehensive set of data. And as you can see, so from March, this is our new previously reported recovered cases, as you can see down at the bottom. And the spike as we've headed into July, I know originally the talk was that perhaps summer this virus would ease up, and it does not appear to be doing so. Our Monterey County Health Director, and I'm not going to read this word for word, but gave some suggestions about schools, just putting partitions, marking floors 6 feet between desks, the separation, and 8 feet being better than 6, being better than 4, of course, outdoor being better than indoor, and those sorts of guidelines from our county health director. Looking at things that the Center for Disease Control has published, and when we get to the safety plan, which is a compliance document, it asks us to plan out what kind of safety provisions we would provide at the lowest risk, the more risk category, and the highest risk. So low risk being online digital learning, all activities, events held online. More risk would be more of the hybrid model that we had talked about instituting weeks ago. And highest risk, of course, is full-size in-person activities and events, no additional spacing, shared materials, and those things. So as you can see, it's a visual of what we just looked at, sort of a continuation of what is more risky. And when we did our safety team, we invited district administrators, site administrators, teachers, classified, including representatives, instructional, administrative, health, food services, transportation, facilities. It was really important for this document and required that we engage all different employee levels within the district to give feedback on this, because a lot of it has to do with what kind of provisions would be in one department versus another, all the way down to how we'll serve lunches and things like that. In order to allow the community to understand what we were doing, we streamed this meeting on YouTube and had an email available for questions and comments as the meeting went, and those could be read into the meeting that we had that day and looking at the draft. So just some of our basic recommendations in the safety plan: the daily cleaning classrooms, workstations, the washable face coverings for staff to do the concept of wash one, wear one, and dry one, hand sanitizers, marked out pathways and outdoor areas with social distancing guidelines, additional face shields for all staff, and of course students with health needs and speech services and other areas that might be better served with a face shield. Plexiglass barriers for office counters, small instructional spaces, limited entrance to buildings and classrooms, screenings, temperature checks upon entry for everyone, signage with visual aids for people who are not highly literate or English isn't their first language, or for our young learners who can't quite read that sort of language, they can still understand the concepts. And then for if we're able to launch a hybrid model, that lunch would be grab and go. We could minimize number of students at any one time. Minimize number of desks per room, or designate A day, B day desk in rows, limit transportation, disinfect classrooms, workstations between cohorts. Isolation areas on campus, so that's important when it comes to if a student is ill, or a staff member is exhibiting symptoms, they can go to an isolation area and wait for someone to pick them up if they're a student, or if they're a staff and they need someone else to get them. The nurse would train our health aides, any staff assisting in screening or symptomatic cases, having additional PPE for custodial staff or health staff working in possible infections or persons exhibiting symptoms. Identifying and retaining super subs for each school site to address needs should a teacher exhibit symptoms, and of course instructional content for parents regarding mask wearing, hand washing, etc. And by no means is this list comprehensive. It just to give you an overview of that team. We basically had two teams, one concerned with this compliance and safety document, and the other with our instructional planning. And I'll kind of go over that now and discuss my recommendation moving forward. So the instructional planning teams, how that was set up, we had two representatives from each school site working with principals, with parent representatives in each group, district administration. And what we're looking at is how to formulate a plan for rigorous and effective instruction. And I want to stress that the rigorous and effective instruction is key for us in Santa Rita, regardless of whatever model we institute, whether we go full distance learning or we're ever able to introduce a hybrid. Academic instruction, we talked about focusing on our ELA, math, science, social studies, music, and PE can still be offered in a modified format. I know middle school elective teams, we're looking at ways to still deliver that content. As well as like PE for middle school, how we can possibly do that. And those teachers are dedicated to working on making sure students still have access to that instructional content as well. It's also important to note that our intervention, ELD, and enrichment will continue. It may not be in class in the normal way that we normally would proceed. So my suggestion is that we facilitate a multi-level approach to instruction, which limits the number of students on campus if the situation allows for any level of on-student attendance. And that would be done through a hybrid cohort and distance learning. So teachers would have class divided into 2 cohorts. Half their students would attend on A days, half their students on B days, and then cohort C, 5 days of distance learning. So what I'd like us to consider in this informational item is the idea of a rolling start. We originally in our instructional planning team meetings talked about having online instruction for students only between August 5th through 18th and beginning the hybrid model on the 19th. But I'm going to share with you some data that I believe mitigates that original plan and speaks to the need to delay the start of a hybrid. So how it might look is that online instruction for students would begin August 5th with distance learning, limited on-campus time by appointment, and that's to allow for benchmark assessments, LPACs, and other assessments that need to take place. And we would do that in very isolated and individual environments for additional safety if there's an assessment that a student needs to come in order to facilitate. During this period, students will have mandatory daily interaction with their teachers online that we want to get classes shaped up so teachers know who their students are, go ahead and start engaging with them. And students would engage in those time value lessons, particularly with a focus on remediation of spring skills, getting everybody back into the mindset for school between August 5th through the 18th. This also allows our amazing teacher staff to get their Google Classroom set up, their Edleo websites connected, make those connections with students and families, as well as address their own professional development needs that they may have as we're going through these new tools and building a different kind of instruction. And what I'd like to suggest is that on August 19th, students would then shift to full distance learning with their teachers. Originally, that date was scheduled to begin our hybrid, but I do not feel that at this time is our safest choice for Santa Rita. To lay out a timeline of what I'd like to have the board consider. So August 5th, to give you an idea, that's still our student start date, have the daily interaction, things like our iReady diagnostic, initial LPACs, students have access to distance learning. August 19th, continued daily interaction. This is when our instruction with the classroom teachers go into focus on the ELA, the math, the science, social studies for career standards. Got your elective content, ELD available online. By no means is this a comprehensive list of what will happen, just to give you a general idea. And as you can see that my proposal indicates that I feel like each month, mid-month, we need to reassess the data before we would even consider opening a hybrid model. And we would continue distance learning for all as needed. And I have reasons for suggesting a monthly approach. One, it'll allow us to communicate out with our families well in advance if the data regarding COVID-19 positivity rates would allow for a safe opening of the hybrid model at all, and that we would just know that we can continue straight into our effective distance learning as long as we need to. So when would the hybrid model start? I'd like to suggest a benchmark that is suggested by the World Health Organization. The hybrid model would begin upon a county positivity rate of less than 5% for 14 consecutive days. Of course, unless we are directed otherwise by state or county. Right now, Monterey County still has escalating positivity rates, and I'll show you a graph in just a moment. If we use the positivity rate as one of our base measures, that allows for the benchmark to be based on percentages, not just the number of individuals tested. We know that as more individuals are tested, of course, there are more positive cases. But doing the percentage also allows us to break it down into our specific district zip codes within the county. and to keep a specific eye on that because that's particularly our learning community. And the recommendation of the WHO is an upper limit of less than 5%, 14 consecutive days before opening activities. Anytime within that 14 days, we go above the 5% if we restart our clock. Right now, Monterey County is recommending an 8% upper limit. And I want to show you what that looks like. So when we look at this, and this is your 7-day moving average. And you can see this begins here in March, and we have here July 13th is about the end of our data. And our positivity rates right here, I don't know if you guys, or if you can follow my mouse, this is the 5% suggested by the WHO. This top red line is the 8% suggested by Monterey County. This graph gives you an indication here of how many times it was sustained and how long it was sustained for to be under those weeks. So this longest gap here below 5 basically starts somewhere between May 11th and May 18th. Figure it's about the 13th. And we were already back up to 5 by June 1st. So having a 2-week period, the 14 days suggested by the WHO, right now, looking at this graph, I do not envision that we've even met that measure of 14 days without over 5% of positivity rates in Monterey County. So what I suggest is that we assess data monthly to determine a safe date for opening the hybrid model. And until then, we remain in distance learning only. Moving forward, I'd like to send out a monthly situational report to our families, and that can include data about the county overall, as well as our specific zip codes, as well as what the school district is looking at doing in terms of learning the hybrid model. And we could always stay at minimum a month ahead of this, if not farther. And when safe to do so, and only then would SRUSD facilitate a hybrid model of instruction for our students, as I mentioned before. And even once the hybrid model started, we would still continue with distance learning cohort C because we know that we will, until this virus is completely eradicated, have families who have a need for distance learning. So the continuity, and I think what I really want the board to know is how invested our teachers have been in this. Our principals, I asked them for help in doing some of the legwork that needs to happen for the school year to open, regardless of the model that we move forward with. So grade level teams have been identifying core academic standards and instructional pacing for each grade. Curriculum instruction assessments are going to have consistent norms that allow for continuity of academic rigor between distance and in-person formats. So regardless of the model, our instructional rigor and dedication to good education of our students is going to be in place. Platforms for instruction include, that certainly are not limited to the Google Suite. We're going to roll out a new website, Edlio. It allows teachers to have their own website connected to their Google Classroom for easy access for parents and students. The Engage app, which is connected to Edlio and Aries, and it will allow for very comprehensive connection with our parents and communication. iReady, which is going to be a big component for our students who need remediation in ELA and math. Accelerated Reader. Eureka Math, our adopted curriculum, has a new program called Eureka Math in Sync. And they've put a lot of the prep materials, all of our student workbook content now as fillable PDFs and things like that, which will better help facilitate the Eureka Math instruction at a distance. STEM Scopes as well has brought out new additional content online. So has TCI, which is our middle school history, and so many more things. Teachers will have access to ongoing professional development content for distance learning, instructional and technology tools as we move forward. I know I'm already getting some emails from our teachers who are thinking ahead about what they might need technology-wise and getting ahead and getting those things ordered. Nicole Jensen has been taking questions from people, making sure that we order new Chromebooks for those who have the Generation 1 still, things like that. Just getting some things in place before this gets started so everyone has the tools that they need to be effective teachers. So I think the most important thing as we go through this is to understand the need to respect situational change. I know the work, and I wanna honor and value the work that our instructional planning teams put together when we came up, and really solidified what we would do for the hybrid model and how effective that could be. But I just don't feel like this is the safest way for us to open in August. And I have a feeling that we will be doing distance learning quite longer than we had originally thought we would. So in the event that we were ever able to open the hybrid, I think it's important to know that should the situation mandate it, we can all move back into distance learning and cohort C model. And the reason we would be able to do that is because the work our teachers have been doing on what their hybrid might look like and what cohort C might look like, and making that connection between the two. And the district will be monitoring all information from state and county officials, and will communicate information to families and staff. Ideally, our instructional model would have looked something like this to begin with. That a hybrid teacher would have students, a full class of students, and they would be broken into cohort A and cohort B. So if I had a class with 24 students, 12 of my students would receive in-person instruction with me on Monday and Tuesday, and distance learning the other 3 days of the week. And my other 12 students would have received distance learning for the first 3 days of the week, and then in-person instruction on Thursday and Friday. And any students in cohort C, this teacher would have had 24 students participating in distance learning. And I know in our instructional planning teams, we talked about even these teachers would be good. It would be a good idea to break your students into two and be able to do the live interactive instruction with them on these 2 days, and the other half on these 2 days. Now, AB 77 indicates that we need to have live daily interaction with our students and give them a chance to interact with their peers. We have plenty of background in doing that, our character counts, materials, things like that, to engage our students, to keep them dialed into school even at a distance. So right now, my suggestion as that we adopt as we move forward would be starting our year with cohort C and only instituting our hybrid model when it is safe to do so. So next steps, we are currently cleaning and repairing Chromebooks and getting ready to redistribute student Chromebooks for distance learning. Our IT team is hard at work at getting ready to do that. We've done it once before. We know now what works and what doesn't, and we're pretty good at getting those out quickly to our families. We have, as parents fill out their survey for their preferred model, we are asking about their internet access and making individual phone calls to those families who indicate that they have no internet, and trying to help them through the process and whether or not we can supply a hotspot, or if they live in an area where hotspot would not be effective. We are confirming each family's instructional model choice for those families who have not been able to complete the survey. School sites are going through the list of those students who are registered with them, and they're making individual phone calls to those families who have yet to fill out the survey or who may need help filling out the survey. We're going to continue to work closely with our labor teams to ensure safe school sites and effective instruction. We're looking to secure super subs for ample coverage at each site for when we do go back in session, as well as for if we're doing distance learning and we have a teacher who is homesick and cannot facilitate distance learning, that we have a sub who's able to cover that as well. We're going to communicate all changes with families. I mentioned a monthly situational report. We will continue to offer meals for all students daily, regardless of their instructional model. And we're going to continue we will provide optional supervision for staff members, school-age children who are enrolled in SRUSD. And our instructional planning meeting, I asked if that would be something that our teachers were interested in. And they indicated that it would be, so we will do that. And of course, it would be a staff member's option if they wanted to take advantage of that. And it would simply be supervision in a safe, socially distant space where their students would have access to internet and instructional tools that they might need to facilitate their distance learning while their parents are teaching or working in the district. And they would have access to breakfast and lunch as well. And that would be, of course, a parent's choice. And our school sites are going to be conducting virtual town halls and campus tour meetings so that parents can see what the campus will look like when we do open a hybrid model when it is safe to do so, as well as to have a virtual town hall to answer questions about the instructional model, what tools we're using, and any questions parents have.
Thank you. Are there any board questions?
I have a couple of comments there, if I can start, if that's okay.
Absolutely.
First of all, I want to thank everyone in our district, the staff, teachers, administration, for coming together to formulate a plan to help deal with this historic event that we're all going through. But I want to also remind everyone that this is temporary. This is not the norm. We'll get through this, and when the end of the tunnel, we will get back to normal school. But what do we do until then to protect our students? About a week or 2 weeks ago, I called Tim and I sent him a text message. I said, maybe we need to reevaluate about opening schools and going to PL because of the fact that the number of cases were growing in Monterey County. And here we are 2 weeks later, and they're even higher today. So in the last 2 weeks, I fielded a number of phone calls, as everyone on the board has, from parents and staff members about the concerns and the safety issue. And for the most part, I agree with it. We are dealing in unprecedented times. Safety is an issue, and we need to ensure that not only students but staff are also protected. So I'm very grateful that our district is moving towards a distance learning right from the beginning. So I want to commend that. I want to ensure that while the virus is growing in our area, that we are protecting our students and making sure that we only implement hybrid when it's feasible and it's safe. Regarding the plan for August 5th, my concern is that on August 5th, I want to make sure that the students know how to use the technology. If they need to come on campus, so be it, so we can train them. I want to make sure that there is not an equity issue in terms of access to technology and the use of technology. So whatever we can do to ensure that all of our grade level students know what they're doing, know how to use the computer, know how to log on, etc. And also the commitment with parents. We need to have a pathway to making sure parents are part of the process. So I would love to see some ideas in terms of how we're going to engage parents along the way. Regarding the hybrid model, I agree with you that if and when it is safe, that we should shift over into a hybrid combination model. However, what I don't want is no auto trigger. I don't want to have a system in place where automatically we go to hybrid without board approval. So before we have it, I don't want any auto trigger. I don't care what the other districts are doing. I want to protect our district. So I want us as a board to look at the number, and only upon our approval do we go to hybrid. I do not want an auto trigger to automatically kick in. Last but not least, I want to commend the parents and teachers who have contacted us board members. I think this is a very difficult issue. I think everyone agrees that safety has to be a primary concern. And as a teacher myself, I will be doing distance learning. And, I myself am over 50 and I have complications and with my health as well. So I understand the need to protect our staff as well as our students and their parents as well. So I'm very pleased that our district was able to shift from hybrid to distant learning. And that is the game plan starting from school. And we build out from there. So once again, safety has to be our overriding priority no matter what. even if one student got sick or transmitted that virus to somebody in the family, then personally as a board member, regardless of what the school district says, I would feel like, hey, I caused that to a certain degree because I allowed it to happen when I could have stopped it. And so I agree with the rest of the board members as we were talking about this earlier about distant learning. So I'm glad we're moving in that direction. Thank you.
Thank you.
Melissa, I'm sorry.
Ella.
Yeah, Melissa, thank you very much for all of your work, well, everybody's work. To the instructional planning team and the safety team. I know that you guys have all been working tirelessly on this plan, and I really appreciate the model that you've presented before us. I'm also glad that we're doing the distance learning also and moving into the phases monthly and looking at the numbers. And also to thank all of the teachers and parents that emailed me to and listen. I'm here to listen. That's my purpose here on the board. And I'm just really glad that there were a lot of emails that I received. I read them all too also. And we're here to try and accommodate your wishes and also how we're going to work through this, because this is very, very, very serious. And Melissa, again, thank you to you and the team and the whole district for helping out with this very, very important decisions that we have to make.
Any other comments?
Yeah, thank you for the presentation, Melissa. I wanted to see if possible to get data maybe within the next week or two as far as how many parents haven't been reached that don't have internet to do the survey, just to make sure that we don't miss anybody else through the cracks on the mobile hotspot. But since they can't get online, just maybe within the next 2 weeks, give us an update per school site. There's still some parents that haven't made contact. Talk about the hotspot.
For those who have filled out the survey, we've had 1,068 families who filled out the survey. We have 42 who've indicated they do not have internet access as of today.
Is there still any parents, as far as from the previous years, that haven't been contacted yet? Do you guys have like a percentage of?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
Do you guys have any indication as far as how many parents have not filled out the survey, have not been contacted yet?
Right now, the survey has been open less than a week, and that's about 50% of our families have filled out the survey.
Okay.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Amparo?
I would just like to make a few comments and echo both Patel's and Ms. Alba's comments. We are truly and tremendously thankful that we have an administration that truly has devoted endless hours into putting forward a plan that they think will work and taking into consideration all the stakeholders. Thank you, Melissa, Becky, Mr. Ryan, for really looking at all the stakeholders and getting them together so that you have feedback that can hopefully mirror what everybody's sentiment is. I am aware that this is, consistently changing daily, the situation, and being personally affected by COVID through family members and friends already in more than a few cases, and not all outcomes have been positive, to say the least. I am more than happy to see that we are going the long distance model. I am happy that we are listening to our teachers, that we are listening to our families. And I just, moving forward, I am a little bit confused on what, the hybrid model would look like for middle school. Maybe later on that could be a little bit more of a clarification. As I see it's a work in progress plan, and this is not something that is being asked of right away, because I know everything changes by the minute. And so, and then what are you, when you're saying daily interaction, what does that look like for the teachers and the students? And thank you for allowing the teachers to have that time, to ask for what their needs are going to be as far as PD, as what are going to be, that their needs are met so that they can do the best job possible. Because as a teacher myself, I want to be back in the classroom with my students more than anything. And more than 2 weeks ago, I thought I was going to be in the classroom, and now just with the developments of this week, it really changes my perspective on what it is, and knowing how it is affecting my friends and family personally. And I don't want to see our families in the district affected that way either. So I also, like Mr. Patel, take it very personal when it's even one life, and me making that decision. It's very, very critical and important. So, but beyond anything, thank you everybody for all the hard work that has been done.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you so much to all the administration and the teachers, and to Melissa and Tim specifically, who fielded multiple phone calls from me in the middle of other things that they were doing this week. So I really appreciate it. This was put on the agenda as an information item, so it's not something that we're voting on. So if everyone's comfortable, I'm going to go ahead and move to the next item on the agenda. So we're going to 2.2, approve the COVID-19 school year plan template. So Ms. Alderman, back to you.
All right, I'm going to steal your screen again. So this document, before we get to it, and I'm not going to read it word for word, it's a lot, and we'll post this on we believe there's a draft on the website, and we'll make sure that the final gets posted as well if you approve it. So this plan originated with the California Department of Education and County Offices of Education, created a template for the districts under their purview to allow for laying out what plans are in the different areas of the district for safety measures, in particular for, we looked at a slide earlier where the CDC mentioned the lowest risk plan, which of course would be online learning, and the mid-risk plan, which is what, like instituting a hybrid where you minimize the number of students on campus and interacting, but you have some level of on-campus instruction. And then the highest risk model, which essentially looks like going back to school as normal. So the districts were tasked with going ahead, meeting with departments, making sure that they engaged employees from each area, really nuanced out as much of those safety measures as they could. By all means, this is our draft. This document would be changing, of course, if some other new PPE became available and recommended, or a new type of cleaning method that was even more effective. We can go back and revise this draft. And so the County Office of Education wants the document approved by boards of education so that everyone in our community is aware of at least the basic provisions we're making for the 3 different stages, okay? So I'm gonna steal your screen for a little bit and we'll go through this. And like I said, I believe you all have access to the document in your board agenda, but I wanted the public to be able to see it before you vote on it, and then go ahead and whenever, if you approve it, we'll get it posted as the final draft for people to review. All right, I'm gonna attempt to steal your screen again. Okay, Everybody see the document?
Yes.
All right, here we go. Okay, so this is our 2021 school year plan. It begins with some guiding information published by the CDC about the virus, sort of should you consider opening, and it gives you a pick a yes or no and choose your own adventure here based on some very specific guidelines in terms of should you open and monitor the situation. So guiding principles to keep in mind, of course, here, this lowest risk plan would be students and teachers engaging in virtual classes, activities, and events. And I appreciate the board's support in shifting our model over to the lowest risk and then continuing to monitor the situation and the data from there. And then the more risk plan would be with the social distancing, not sharing objects, doing hybrid and virtual in-person structures, staggered rotating schedules, smaller classes. And then the highest risk would look like a full-size in-person activities, classes, events, no extra spacing, shared materials. Basically looks like what a normal school year. Ensure that you're promoting behaviors that reduce the spread. And I want to go ahead and point out to everybody, even if we're doing distance learning, the fact that we're going to provide safety gear and PPE for our students, I feel like that's just as important as handing them a Chromebook, is handing them washable masks, because I want to keep them safe, whether they're here on campus with us or at home doing distance learning. So we'll look at doing some of those things, making those videos on how to properly wear your mask and wash your mask, even if you're a primary student or a middle schooler. So the different cloth-based coverings, adequate supplies, signs and messages you want to have, provisions for maintaining a healthy environment that you need to be sure to do, the ventilation, making sure your water system is clean, how to institute physical barriers, and looking at those kinds of things, limiting communal spaces, how might you handle food services, and other healthy operations. So how do you protect people who are at a higher risk? And how do you deal with gatherings, visitors, field trips, cohorting students together to ensure that they're in a stable group whenever we get to the hybrid model. Again, staggering schedules, community response efforts, how are we communicating things? Have we got our leave policies and absence policies up to date and available on our website for our staff members to access and to research what they might need in terms of leaves? What's our plan for backup staffing, staff training on protocols, signs, facilities, and of course mental health is going to be very important in all of these things. What do we do when someone is sick? How do we isolate them? How do we clean and disinfect? And how do we notify health officials and close contacts? So our purpose is to be prepared to reopen. And in whichever method we choose to reopen, it's to have a preparatory plan in place. So our plan, and we're going to get to it, it again outlines the low risk, more risk, and high risk. And of course, when COVID is no longer a threat and a vaccine is in distribution, schools can return to normal operations. So our first, health and safety. Now, what was really nice about this document and the way that MCOE put it together for districts is that they asked these guiding questions. So when we met as our safety task force with our representatives, we used these guiding questions to fill in our bullet points for these. So as you can see, of course, we will maintain compliance, and that goes across all three bands. The lowest risk, students, teachers, online classes, activities, events, staff, if they're coming on campus, because this plan has no students on campus. For classes, they'd be looking at sanitization, hand washing, social distancing, face coverings, the same illness protocols, workstations, sanitize, signage, and then of course our more risk plan talks about the additional PPE that would be available, age-appropriate videos for our students before they get to school, about what using the restroom facilities would look like, hand washing throughout the school day, and these things. And I really want to commend the safety team. I had begun this with just a few bullet points in each that were just standard basic things. And I asked them to help me fill out those things that that they saw that were needed in these areas, because we could easily start with the general draft. But as you can read through this document, people gave a lot of thought into how to facilitate a safe reopening on any of these three points on the spectrum. So we're looking here like the staggered start, dismissal staggered, monitored, designated pickup, arrival on campus areas designated by grade level to allow for temperature checks, visual health screenings. We've got symptoms list that our nurse has put together, using hand sanitizer before they come on campus, making sure they have either their washable mask or a disposable mask if they have forgotten theirs or if theirs has broken. So as we go through different hygiene practices that we want to make sure that we have in place, this would be if we have staff on campus, here's if we have students back in a small capacity, and of course, facilitating good hygiene practices even in our highest risk plan when we come back. These are things we would want to put in place during flu season. Just in a regular school year, things that we want to make sure that as we go, these are all in place. So making sure about the air circulation, PPE, looking at, and our director of MOTF has given a recommendation for air circulation by each school site. We have determined that our HVAC system is all governed in-house. I know there was some speculation that portions of our HVAC was governed outside of our district, but it's all in-house now. And looking at opening the dampeners to allow for the largest amount of fresh air to be circulated in those that have AC or heat, depending on the weather here. You never know on any given day which one you're going to need. And windows for those rooms that have good cross ventilation, as well as filters for any workspace that may not have windows or appropriate ventilation in those areas. So looking at our required PPE, this is where our school nurse, Elizabeth Simmelman, and our health aide who's in attendance, Rhonda Velez, was super helpful in putting these things together in our task force. Looking at the additional PPE that a health aide or someone who's assisting in that area, in that isolation room, our nurse laid out the plan that those who are dealing with the isolation room would wear additional PPE, such as a disposable gown, fresh gloves, a mask, and a face shield. And before they leave the facility, they would take those items off to be disposed of. And then if another person is coming in, would sanitize and put on fresh gear. So Nurse Simmelman did an amazing job putting together those protocols for our PPE, for our health aid workers, and anyone who might end up assisting them in any capacity. So our cleaning procedures, looking at the high-touch surfaces, that we have a checklist for what gets disinfected in order to document daily what is being disinfected, and that's really, it's to allow a sense of surety of what's being done. It becomes an in-house compliance document, making sure that those areas we said would be sanitized are sanitized, and that checklist is completed by our staff daily as these activities are taking place. Looking at, our buses being cleaned with our aerosol dispensed. Victor and his crew went in and disinfected a bus and determined that it is a minimum of 17 minutes for the fogger to be affected in the bus for disinfecting the surfaces and to aerosol spray all of the interior of the bus. And they would want to do that between routes to ensure that those have been sanitized before another cohort of students rode the bus. And so that's important if we're ever able to institute our hybrid model. These are the provisions that would be in place for getting our students who are in their cohort A or B safely to and from campus, and what we're doing while they're on campus in order to minimize their risk. So all high-touch surfaces, including but not limited to, of course, door handles, light switches, faucets, paper, pencil sharpeners, wiped down daily, classrooms equipped with disinfecting wipes for wiping surfaces throughout the day, or if something seems that it needs to be cleaned off, that our teachers and our students have access to materials in order to facilitate that. We are also investigating UV light machines. We haven't purchased any of those, so I left that as an and or. And of course, we can adjust this plan if we are able to obtain any of those. So the UV light machine has been found to eradicate the virus in a closed space, and it's a process where you have to go and put the machine in the space, set a timer. The human beings need to leave the space, and it takes about 5 or 6 minutes, and then you're able to enter the space again safely. So our required physical distancing, very great guiding questions in this document, how we might rearrange spaces, how we might restrict field trips, change up our instructional program for that. Looking at our employees, well, and if you don't directly work with students, continue to work from home rather than at the school site. Will employees need to work alternating shifts or anything like that to avoid shared space? So this plan even includes our non-instructional staff and shared office spaces. So looking at, again, keeping our cohort small, flexing grade levels to meet basic school supplies to minimize contact and sharing, coordinating classroom teacher schedules to allow social distancing when they take a break, or to allow students to socially distance outside to remove their mask and stretch. That cohorts would have a designated area, equipment clean, field trips being postponed or held virtually. Of course, those things are also seen in our low risk plan, our virtual field trips, meetings held virtually, and those kind of activities. And then of course, activities like field trips and sports and things could resume once we hit a capacity at which we could reopen schools safely. Looking at our student attendance and health policies, AB 77 guides us on how we'll take attendance. We will still be monitoring daily attendance and documenting that in our student information system, and attendance is really monitored in class and during distance learning time with the teacher. According to AB 77, attendance can take the form of accessing and working with instructional materials, meeting with your teachers at an arranged time, via phone call and email, checking into your online class and interacting, and that we document that. It's also important to know that we need to have we are advised to have a weekly engagement log, so that if we have students who are not engaging with instruction, that we have a plan for re-engaging them, principals working with school site counselors, other staff members to reach out to those families, find out what might be going on, how we can help get them re-engaged with distance learning. Luckily, in our district, we had a very small percentage of our families that we sort of dropped off of the distance learning radar late last spring. I know other districts, it was a very big struggle for them. And our principals, I know Donna Koenig and her staff, they went as far as going over, making home visits, checking in with them, finding out if there were technology needs. Nicole Jensen getting out of the car to help student get logged into his Chromebook, and so people making really personal efforts to keep our students engaged and looking at that. So keeping track of attendance and engagement is going to be really essential for us for effective distance learning practices. Looking at our situational awareness and consulting with local health authorities. How we'll communicate our plan out, so who will update and share. And I listed a whole lot of people because each of us gets a layer of information. The district nurse is dialed into certain information. Our director of student services, Nadine Dermody, gets a different set of information with our student services and special education guidelines. We have information from CDE, MCOE, the health department. And really it's about coordinating those things and getting the information out. Our coordinator of ed technology, Nicole Jensen, she will keep things posted on our website, our Facebook, and our communiques that will be sent out with our website and our Engage app that we'll be using starting next month for keeping our families engaged and informed. Looking at how we'll communicate confirmed cases. So we will maintain compliance, of course, with state and local guidelines and regulations on how to do that. Our staff will be trained on student and staff wellness protocols before school starts. The reported cases need to go to the immediate supervisor, who will then report to human resources and the district nurse. And then they will go about collecting the information and the trends and report that to the health department. And these are basic procedures that all districts will be following, and that allows the health department to initiate notifications, contact tracing, and any other safety measures that they have in place. Our instructional programming, and you just saw a whole slideshow on it. So this is our low risk plan, which is my proposal of what we start with. And so that we're engaging with our distance learning, our students, our students will have our Chromebooks, access to internet if possible, daily interaction with our staff, daily instruction that exceeds the required instructional minutes, looking at our 4 core subjects, how we'll complete intervention and our electives and enrichment activities. This will all be facilitated distance learning. And then here with our more risk plan, it outlines the cohorts and what that might look like. By having Wednesdays as our non-students on campus day when we institute our hybrid, it allows for a deep cleaning and disinfection of our sanitization of all of our classrooms and workspaces between the cohorts on Wednesday and either Saturdays or Friday afternoons after our second cohort before the Monday arrival of the next group in alternating weeks. So again, all students will receive access to our Chromebook and access to the internet if needed and possible. And for those who are unable to access the internet due to location and a lack of service, I know we have just a few families who live in an area where a hotspot's not effective. And looking at ways to give them access to an isolated area on campus where they can access the internet. Maybe doing something like MPSD is doing mobile hotspots for a set time of day. Nicole Jensen did drive around to all 6 of our school sites and confirmed that the internet can be accessed from the parking lots. And so we may be able to make arrangements for some families if that's our worst case scenario for those that we just cannot get internet to. And students, again, the daily instruction and our intervention and activities. And if we do the hybrid model, these things would be offered on campus and or online. Technology and infrastructure. This is where I'm thankful that we are a highly technologically advanced district already. Turns out we were pretty forward thinking in that, not knowing that this sort of incident would ever occur. We have enough Chromebooks for every single one of our students to have a device at home, and that puts us in a very fortunate position. I know a lot of school districts are still struggling on how to get devices to students and being able to not accomplish that in the way that we can. So I'm very thankful that we're able to do that. Right now, what we're focused on is making sure that our teacher devices are adequate. I know our IT team was reaching out, finding out what our teacher needs are. We have some teachers who still have older Chromebooks and looking at quickly getting their devices replaced with something more appropriate if they need it, or just looking at additional things that they might need. If they need 2 devices, one for making sure that their Google Classroom or their Google Meet is up, while another one to stream what they're doing, or things like that. Being able to just get all the technology into teachers' hands that they need. We're pretty confident that we can get all the technology into our students' hands. So now really we're able to sort of turn and divert some of that funding over to refreshing those devices and seeking out additional equipment that teachers identify that they would need. So again, looking at if we can possibly supply some sort of type of computer lab time to help bridge the digital divide for those students who don't have internet access, hotspots, other means, mobile hotspots within the network. We're looking at changing our safeguard over to LineWise, and that allows a greater control in the hands of teachers in terms of unlocking things that they want to share with students. It's a much more streamlined platform for them, and it has all the features that we've enjoyed with GoGuardian. But LineWise has additional features that I believe are going to see us through this digital learning, as well as the hybrid model, in a much more effective pathway. So Nicole Jensen investigated LineWise, found out they have another series called ClassWise that also allows for a lot of professional development about internet safety, using technology, our technology tools, and accessing content for our parents as well as our students. So that's going to be a great development tool and learning tool for our parents, as they're going to end up assisting to some degree with our distance learning. And looking at our EdLeo website, that we'll be able to put a very front and center radial button for our parents to access and indicate that they need assistance with technology in a much more timely manner, that we can get them the help that they need. Our teachers will continue to have access to professional development. With the low risk plan, things will all be offered online via webinar, either conducted live or recorded, then virtually streamed to them if we have someone here that's presenting. And with the more risk plan, it might be done virtually or in small groups, things like that. And the high risk plan looks more like what we've normally experienced. So early learning and childcare, our early learning and childcare is governed by CDE and licensing provisions. So our state preschool will receive instruction in small groups per CDC licensing and guidelines. And if possible, the lowest risk plan would be preschool students receiving virtual only classes and activities. We haven't gotten firm guidance on whether or not that would be allowed for our state preschool, but ideally that would be the lowest risk plan if it's allowable. This is a grant funded program, and so we have to really stay in line with all of their guidelines and directives for regulations in order to maintain our funding. Family engagement and support. Teachers can make introduction videos, doing virtual campus tours, virtual back to school, families engaged in virtual meetings, conferencing, parent surveys out digitally to elicit feedback and hear concerns. And I believe this needs to be a regular occurrence as we go through this, because we can always text sale and change direction if needed. We'll utilize our social media platforms such as Facebook, our Engage application, which is two-way communication tool, things like that. And our parent representatives were included in our safety planning team and our instructional planning teams. It was important to hear their voice and their concerns as we went through both of those plans. Again, many of this is the same, but some things might be in person. Many of it would still be virtual, because we don't want to have large crowds even with the hybrid. You're still minimizing the number of people on campus. And then the high-risk plan would go back to looking a lot like normal, but with some of these new tools that we utilize now. Social and emotional well-being, I'm not sure why there's a large blank there, but our students engaging daily, that's important. CDE wants daily interaction between students and teachers and their peers, that's very important for the social emotional aspect. Our character counts program has been going strong and we'll keep doing that. Engaging our families in our communication, making sure that we are reaching out to them in terms of academic progress, attendance, additional information that they may need. Continue with our meal service, continue working with our community partners for additional meals for those neediest of our families. Looking at that. Our mental health services, Nadine Dermody working with a lot of the agencies that we had already partnered with, such as Monterey County Department of Behavioral Health, working with teletherapy agencies to provide additional services. And as you can see, this goes across the 3 plans because sometimes something is just a really good idea and you want to do it regardless of your model. So we're really looking at keeping our students engaged with our services. As you know, an issue that's near and dear to my heart is keeping students safe, working with those students who need access to a mandated reporter, and getting them the services and the supports that they need to be successful, healthy, and safe. Looking at communications, making sure that our staff receives weekly communications from the district, of course, more frequently if there are health updates put out. Wanting to make sure that we engage our families, email, website, robocalls, social media, the Engage app. I know Mr. Patel at the time said he wants people complaining we communicate too much, so that's going to be our goal. As well as the monthly situational reports so that we can keep our families well versed on what we might be heading in a direction, and doing the monthly situational reports and updates for the board so that we can make an informed decision. When I suggested the 5%, the below 5% from the World Health Organization, I just meant for that to be one of our measures because it's important also to assess what our percentage is in our zip code versus the entirety of Monterey County, and really digging into that data with our stakeholders on a monthly basis so that we can make a good informed decision moving forward. General personnel, continuing to survey and follow up with our staff, engaging our staff in reopening safety task force, making sure that we're regularly meeting with our labor unions, looking at MOUs, and to make sure that we're addressing items for CSEA, for SRTA, as we move forward, and that way we're all on the same page. We all understand everything that we need to do as we work together during this situation. Looking at having our substitutes with our intent to return letters so that we know who's on deck. Looking at recruiting additional subs, designating super subs who will be on one campus each day, and that way we know that they're at least minimized to that campus. And this, of course, is a provision for when we are able to have students back on campus. Our staff and attendance health policies, of course, staff absence reporting ASOP, the making sure that everyone understands their leave entitlements within the collective bargaining agreements as well as state and federal law. And that all of our employees, volunteers, contracted service commit to the self-screening and all of the other safety provisions that we have in place on campuses. And I just took up a whole lot of time, and that is our safety plan.
Are there any questions or comments? I did just want to say for the
That is an opportunity we have to start the year right with. So the more involvement with the parents and the students early on, making sure things are working, make sure there's equity, make sure they understand the responsibilities. You know, I would thank you for that. Last but not least, you know, I had a number of people come up to me and tell, you know, and ask me, hey, isn't this just like the flu? What's the big deal? It's like the flu. Well, you know what? This is way different than the flu. In any given year, the flu might kill 30,000 on average. Well, this virus has killed 4 times that number in half the time. And that's with us, the entire nation, going into lockdown. It scares me to think about what this nation would have went through if we didn't go through the lockdowns early on. And if with our best efforts, we still have 120,000, 140,000 dead, you know, we need to weather the storm the best we can. So I'm glad we have a comprehensive plan. I'm glad we're going to execute it. I'm glad we got the input of the experts. Now, regarding who we're going to look to in terms of guidance, you know, I know we mentioned the World Health Organization, Monterey County, state. You know, I love to get information from everyone, but the bottom line is we are not the rest of America. We're not the rest of the world. I will rely personally on what's happening here locally. I will turn to the state first and then to Monterey County Department of Health. You know, I know, you know, we're in a vacuum where nationwide people are talking about doing this or that. Well, you know what? Every county, every state is different. And I want to make sure we have the best plan and the best execution of a plan that deals with our local conditions, you know? So thank you for Melissa for making a great presentation and creating a great plan with the help of everybody, of all stakeholders.
Thank you, Mr. Patel. Something that I really want to point out, and I said this in the instructional planning meeting as well as the safety plan meeting. Let's not put anything down that we can't do. So everything in this document is possible, it's happening, it's real, it's honest. This document is not about having something pretty and glossy that gets approved by the County Office of Ed. This document is guiding principles for us as the basis of what we're going to put together. So I know everybody's been personally affected by this virus. I've lost someone who's near and dear to me from this. I've had family members who were gravely ill. And so I take this very seriously and I take it very personally. And so every bit of this is thanks to the investment of people who work in this district, the ladies that I've been working with on a daily basis for 4 months, half of that out back in a portable behind Gavilan View, where Donna Koenig graciously allowed us to park when we were out of the DO. And as well as our site administrators, our classified staff and leaders, as well as our certificated teachers being willing to come in or engage online to help get this plan done, to ask the hard questions, to give the possibilities and solutions to getting this problem solved. So when I talked to SRTA last night and kind of gave them a heads up that while I know we did all this planning of talking about the hybrid model, that today I was actually going to suggest to you that we delay the start of that, put in some safety measures, and instead go with distance learning. They were receptive, they understood, and I think we'll be able to move forward together. Thanks.
You know, Tim, I just want to also thank you for your leadership. You know, it's not easy to make a course reversal or a major course change, you know, and you were able to be executed within a week or so, you know, based on the current data that we're seeing. So thank you for being flexible and thank you for executing.
Thank you, Neil. I'm just sad that we couldn't get the information out quicker, so people weren't so worried that we weren't seeing the same thing they were. That part of it, I'm gonna continue to work harder to get the information out as quickly as we can. It's just that we actually sat down yesterday morning and got something in place and got a plan in place. And quite frankly, we just couldn't get the word out. And you know, the fact that Melissa shared it in negotiations is a good thing, but it's obvious that it didn't, you know, I didn't get it out to all the staff. So this virus is challenging in that way too, because I used to be pretty good at keeping everybody informed of what was going on. But I'll get back into it, and we'll get that, because it would have been nice if we could have got this out to everybody that sent the letters in that were worried, just because I hate for them to be fearful that, you know, that we're not seeing what they're seeing and that we're not sensitive to what they're seeing. So we'll work on it. We'll get better.
Okay.
Really quick, thank you everybody for everything again. I do see that, like, on our district website for Facebook, some parents are commenting in Spanish. And I wonder if, you know, how is it that we're gonna distribute this information to language, other people, our families that have a different language at home or that need this information. So just a thought.
Ms. Hadagi Saldana, right now that the district office is open again, we'll have assistants who work on translating this document, as well as our instructional plan documents in Spanish for our families to access as well.
And maybe have somebody that may be available for communicating for questions. I know some of them are asking for further information. I don't know, little meetings via a Zoom or whatever. So just making it so that they know that they have access and that there's somebody that can answer their questions regarding, you know, learning models or what have you. I would really appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, and maybe just a simple phone call tomorrow, just a couple of sentences in both languages. Just, we had a meeting, this is our plan going forward for at least, you know, 6 weeks, 2 months, whatever we feel comfortable, you know, telling people, just to get the basic word out.
I'm sorry, just one little thing. You know, regarding information for the parents, you know, it'll be great if you had the how-to videos, you know, on YouTube, recording teachers instructing how to turn on the computer, how to access this website, how to add a Google Classroom, both in English and Spanish, you know. Maybe with the teacher of record could do that, or maybe a general one for the entire district. But somehow make it easy, YouTube videos where people could log on with their phone. Okay, I see what my son and daughter has to do, you know, both in English and Spanish. And I think that will help a lot of parents and also minimize the number of phone calls we get and lack of compliance in terms of students logging on and doing the work.
All right, any other questions or comments before we vote? This one does need a vote. Okay, can I have a motion?
I make a motion to approve the safety plan.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye, Captain.
Aye, so 2.2 passes 4-0. So we're going on to 3.1, consider approval of personnel actions. Ms. Moore?
Couldn't find the mute button. Is there, just to, as a consent item, notifying the board of those resignations we've received and also asking for action to hire teachers for the upcoming school year?
Can I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, Captain.
Aye, passes 4-0. 3.2, Ms. Moore, consider approval of memorandum of understanding to reclassify Mr. Ibrahim from computer technician to IT systems specialist.
Hi, and I'm looking currently at the agreement, which is just behind the agenda item. So we have come to agreement with CSEA regarding Mr. Ibrahim, who is a computer technician. We talked at our last board meeting about the need for the IT systems specialist. And Mr. Ibrahim has essentially been performing the duties of that position for the past year to fulfill that need. So now that the new job description has been created, rather than post to hire that position, the unit is in agreement with us to appoint and reclassify Hussam to that position. Additionally, they brought to our attention that since he has been fulfilling those duties, they would like to see retroactive pay for him. And after reviewing all of the work that he has done, we would like to move forward with a 1-year retro for him, even though the reclassification is effective for this current school year, July 1st, 2020.
Sarah, just a comment. This is one of the things that makes our district awesome, is that we have people, we maintain the lowest overhead cost. We have the lowest amount of people in special positions, but the ones we have are able to multitask, and save our district money. And, when we have a situation like this where somebody has dedicated themselves, I feel very comfortable doing this while maintaining our budgeting restrictions, At the same time, having multifaceted, multi-talented personnel on staff. So I thank you for this, and I think it's a good move for our district.
Is this a need approval?
Yes, I need a motion.
I make a motion to approve.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, passes 4-0. Okay, moving to 4.1, consider the 2020-2021 Santa Rita Union School District 45-day budget revision. Ms. Zamudio.
Yes, hi everyone. So I have really good news, just like I mentioned to you during the last budget presentation for the July 1st. It's most likely that we would do a 45-day budget revision. So as you remember, the July 1st budget, it did represented with a 10% reduction in the LCFF revenue. So on June 29th, the Governor Newsom adopted and signed the budget for the school districts in California. And the good news is that we're not getting the 10% reduction, which for our district was a $3.1 million reduction. So that's really, really good news. So I did send out that spreadsheet. As you can tell, I don't have the huge package for the stacks, which is the state format that we are usually required. This is, even though it is a large amount that we're changing, it's just a small change on the revenue for the LCFF. It is taking that reduction of the $3.1 million and doing a new recalculation based on the 1920 fiscal year. So right now, all the districts are getting funded based on the 1920 ADA. And as you remember, that doesn't mean that we're getting exactly the same amount of funding as the last year, because as you remember, in 1920, we were getting funded on 1988 because of our decrease in enrollment. So we are, if you compare the numbers from our new projection and last year's projection, we're still getting about $300,000 less of what we got last year. But it's definitely a really good news, better than the $3.1 million reduction. So it's a really, really good news. Besides that, they're also giving us additional federal funding for any expenditures related to COVID-19. They're giving us a $375,000 one-time funding for COVID-19 related expenses. And that's also reflected on the spreadsheet that I sent you out. That spreadsheet is also available in the website. Nicole helped me post it yesterday, so it's been available for anyone who would like to review. It was also sent out to the County Office of Education with all the revisions. So this does need an approval. I do want to mention that with these changes, even though we're not getting that big cut, all of our districts in California are getting more cash deferrals. So meaning it's a problem with the cash that we're not going to get it this fiscal year. The last, or the amount that we're getting for the LCFF funding, it's going to be about 68%. When I did the calculation on the amount that for our district, this means that $11.5 million, we're not going to get it this year. We'll get everything until next fiscal year. The last payment that they're going to give us is going to be in December of 2021. So this is going to be very critical to keep track of our cash. As of today, and based on the information that I got, I know that other districts are struggling trying to get loans to be able to process payroll and payments because they're not going to have the cash on time this fiscal year. And for our district, like I mentioned, it's about $11.5 million that we're not going to get this fiscal year. But we are so blessed, and we have reserves for that. So I don't anticipate to be getting a loan as of today. But of course, things are changing. As you know, this is not only a financial issue, it's also a health issue. So as things change and everything that's going on, and if we have any more updates in regards to our finances, I'll be sure to report that to you. Thank you. Please let me know if you have any questions.
Thank you, Rosa, for all your hard work. I know the state is just crazy to deal with, so my hat is off to you. Any questions or comments?
Well, you know I do. Rosa, thank you. As always, you're always providing timely information for us that is accurate. I'm glad that we're not implementing the 10% cut. However, as usual, I want to be very conservative with our finances. I know that we are having deferments, but that is based on the idea that we will get federal money coming in if the federal government chooses to kick back some amount of money to each state. And that is part of the deferment process. So even though we're deferring it with the hope that we will get all that money fully funded back, my concern is always with the federal government not doing what's needed. So in case that doesn't happen, I want to make sure we're looking at this at a very conservative approach, watching our reserves, and making sure that we're being prudent on our expenditures coming forward. So great news. But I am still concerned, not with the state, but more or less with the federal coming up with their portion of it. But having said that, once again, thank you for your timely information that we need as board members to make better decisions.
Yes, thank you. And we are having ongoing communications with the county. All of our districts are meeting. We usually used to meet once a month, but right now we're meeting twice a month and as needed because we know the information is changing continuously by day, by weeks. We're getting a lot of information. So that's really helping us, all of our districts in Monterey County, to stay up to date and to make the necessary changes when it comes to our finance. Thank you.
Thank you. And it's also my expectation, although I hope I'm wrong, that the state's not going to meet their tax revenue projections, so that, as we have adjustments, I think this might be the last positive adjustment that we see for a while. So that being said, can I have a motion?
I make a motion to approve 4.1.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, Captain.
Aye, passes 4-0. Thank you, Rosa. So we're down to 5.0 future meeting agenda items. Our next regular meeting will be Wednesday, August 12th. There may be another update needed in the next couple weeks as we have more information, but we will put that out at the website and let the public know. I also wanted the board members, I sent information to you that Monterey County School Boards Association is doing an online training on best practices with online learning on Monday at 5:30. So if you have not registered for that and you're interested, please go to Monterey County Office of Ed website, and Terry James specifically is overseeing that. I am registered for it and I'm planning to participate. Is there anything else that people would like to see agendized either on the 12th or following? Okay, not hearing anything. I am ready to adjourn. So could I have a motion to adjourn?
I make a motion to adjourn.
I second.
All those in favor?
Okay.
Aye. Passes 4-0. We are adjourned as of 5:14. Thank you, all the district staff. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you.
Very good, very good.
Thank you, everyone.